Welcome to another episode of the Victory Podcast, driven by Audi. I'm your host, Keely Eure, joined by my co-host and former USC quarterback, Cody Kessler. Cody, we are back previewing another exciting Big Ten matchup. It's USC versus Iowa in the Coliseum.
Yeah, this is a big-time game. I'm excited for this matchup. I've been looking forward to this one all year, and this is exactly what you want. If you're USC, if you sign up for the Big Ten, you get one of these type of games where it's a physical opponent in Iowa. You're late in the season. There's 3 games left to go. There's Big Ten implications on the line, but there's also college football playoff implications on the line. USC has really gone through the gauntlet this year with their schedule, some of the teams they've faced, both home and away, and they've weathered the storm, and they put themselves in a great position these last 3 games. So I'm excited for it. If you're going to the Coliseum, first of all, bring an umbrella, bring a poncho.
Speaking of weathering the storm.
Yeah, weathering the storm. But if you are going, let's be loud. Let's make it a true home environment. Let's make it difficult on the Hawkeyes. But at the end of the day, don't look ahead. 1-0 this week, handle business, and let's dominate on Saturday in the Coliseum.
Alrighty, Cody, you're getting me excited on a Wednesday once again. Got to wait till Saturday, but let's preview the Hawkeyes versus the Trojans. Before we do, just a couple reminders. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You can also look at the video version of the show on the USC Athletics YouTube channel. If you ever want to give questions for our preview episode, look at our socials, Victory Pod USC. That's where you can either answer a tweet or a question box on Instagram. Alrighty, Cody, let's dive into your overall scouting report. Now, this is not the first time that I've been covering USC versus Iowa. I actually covered the 2019 Holiday Bowl, so I'm a little bit familiar with the Hawkeyes, but that's also because they have so much tradition that I'm able to kind of reference that from 2019.
Yeah, and if you've covered him before, I'm sure you've heard this name because he's been around since 1999. The Iowa football team head coach is Kirk Ferentz. He is entering his 27th season as the head coach of the Hawkeyes. He's actually been with the program since 1981. He was their offensive line coach from 81 to 89. He's been a 4-time Big Ten Coach of the Year. He's been a 1-time National Coach of the Year. He has 2 Big Ten championships. Listen to this win-loss record, Keely. This is how long he's been coaching at Iowa. He has 210 wins and 127 losses. So far this year, the Hawkeyes are 6-3, and they're coming off of an 18-16 loss last week against Oregon at home in the rain. It was a tough matchup. They played the Ducks well, but ultimately Oregon got the win in that game.
The nice thing about a Friday game for USC last week was that I actually got to watch that game. It was a double preview, both Oregon and Iowa. But let's stick with Iowa, as I said, starting with their offense. Who's at the helm?
Yeah, and you mentioned watching that Oregon game. I had a tough time watching film this week and not jotting down some notes about the Ducks next week. But we're not focused on that. We're focused on Iowa. We're starting with the offense, like you mentioned. And this offense is led by coordinator Tim Lester, who is in his 2nd season as the Hawkeyes offensive coordinator. In his first season last year, they struggled to find some consistency. They were ranked 117th in total offense and 72nd in scoring offense. So far this year, it's been a lot of the same issues. They just haven't really found an identity on the offensive side of the ball. They're 122nd in total offense, averaging just 300 yards per game, and they're 60th in scoring offense. So they've gotten a little better since 2024, and they're averaging 29 points per game right there. So even though they haven't had a ton of success, what they do well is control the trenches. They run the ball well. They know what they do. They don't try to go outside of the box, but USC is still going to have their hands full on Saturday.
I would assume this is also an offense that likes to just turn up clock, like they're just going to dominate possession.
Yeah, I think they're top 35 right now when it comes to time of possession in college football. They do a good job of extending drives. They're not a lot of chunk plays down the field. They'll take some shots here and there, but they want to have 5-yard run, 6-yard run, maybe break one for 15 or 20, then a 4-yard run. Keep your offense off the field. Try to keep the ball on their side and just real discipline. Although they're not putting up a lot of yards, they're still finding ways to score points. They're still finding ways to finish in the red zone. So I don't want USC's defense, your fans listening at home, don't take this offense lightly. They can come out and they're capable of putting up some points, but USC can really do a good job this week and limit them on the offensive side of the ball.
Well, I know, as usual, you did your deep dive in the film. What did you see about the Hawkeyes?
Yeah, this offense is interesting. They're going to show you multiple different looks in this game. You're going to see a good amount of spread offense with them in shotgun and running some of those spread concepts, but you're also going to see a good amount of pro-style concepts and having Gronowski, their quarterback, get under center and have some downhill runs and some play action off of that. So they're going to force USC to play multiple different looks on the defensive side of the ball. I'm curious, though, this week what Denton Lynn's going to do. Is he going to come out regardless of if they're in pro-style, 12 personnel with 2 tight ends, if they're in spread, which is 11 personnel with 3 wide receivers? Is Denton Lynn going to come out regardless and say, we're going to go 4-3 this week, we're going to put Kamari at safety, we're going to take that nickel linebacker, which he's been playing off the field, and we're going to play with 3 linebackers, with Eric Gentry, with Jaden Walker, and with Desmond Stevens, and we're going to force them to try to throw the football. We're going to load the box and take away the run. So that's going to be something early on to keep an eye on. With this Iowa offense, although they run some spread, type tendencies to them. They want to run the football. This is an offense that wants to beat you on the ground game. They want to extend drives, like I mentioned, by running it. They're 65-35 right now, run to pass. That's the heaviest difference we've had so far when it's come to a team being one-dimensional. So far this season, Iowa is 48th in the country running the football. They have had some success, not as much as we've seen in the past, but when it comes to throwing the football, they're 133rd out of 136 teams in college football. They're only averaging 133 yards per game through the air. They do not want to live and die by Gronowski's arm. They will throw it to keep you honest, but there's been multiple times this year where Gronowski hasn't even thrown for 100 yards, and they found a way to still put up some points on offense, so they can get it done regardless of having a passing attack. Now, I mentioned they will run some spread. They run some pro style, that they'll do some different things. One thing they really like to do, though, is get in 12 personnel. They love to use their tight ends. When you think Iowa Hawkeye football, the first thing that comes to mind, especially on offense, is the run game and also the tight ends. That's what they're known for, and it's no different this year. Now, the tight ends haven't been a major factor in the pass game. They had a tight end, and we'll talk about him a little bit, catch a touchdown last week against Oregon, but where they've really been a factor is running the football. They like to get in that 12 personnel. They'll put Gronowski in gun. They'll put him under center, whatever it may be. They'll turn around and hand the football off. They'll run it at a two tight end set on the same side. They'll put them opposite dot formation towards the tight end on the right, tight end on the left, give them a two-way go in the backfield if they want to run downhill to the right, run outside zone to the left, or run straight ahead right at you. They'll use their tight ends with some fullback looks as well, like we've seen with Lincoln Riley this year. Think when we're in shotgun, we have King Miller right behind him, and then you have Lake McCree either to the left or right of Jaden Mayava and running some downhill power looks. So they do a good amount of that. And for those of you that don't know, when I mentioned 12 personnel, 13 personnel, 11 personnel, think about we're always trying to equal 5. With skill players, the first number is always the amount of running backs, second number is always the amount of tight ends, and then you fill the rest in with wide receivers. So 12 would be 1 running back, 2 tight ends, 2 wide receivers. So I use personnel groupings a lot just so you can kind of know what I'm talking about. It doesn't sound like a different language. And I just mentioned this already, but again, keep an eye. If this is a 12 personnel game for Iowa, if they come out and say, we're just going to go 12 personnel and see if USC can stop us, I'm curious to see what Danton Lynn does. Is he going to go 3 linebackers the entire game, regardless of what the personnel grouping is, load the box, play man-to-man on the outside? And I'll explain why I think we're going to see more man this game, but play man-to-man, put 7 or 8 guys in the box and say, hey, you're not going to beat us on the ground. Try to throw the football, especially with those weather conditions. So something to keep an eye on. Now, when they do run the ball, they love to use their quarterback Gronowski in the run game, more so than probably any team we've seen so far this year. He is I wouldn't say he's an explosive runner, but he's a dang good one. He can find little creases. He's a good job on these quarterback design runs. He does a good job with the zone reads, and that's the multiple ways they'll use him. They'll use RPO. They'll use zone reads. They'll have quarterback design runs. He is, I don't want to say run first because he will throw it around, but when he drops back, he's not a 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. He's a 1 to maybe 2.
Okay.
Where's my rush lane? I'm taking off. I'm running. I trust my legs more than I trust my arms right now. So that's something you got to keep an eye on. Be ready for him down on short yardage situations. The reason they use these quarterback design runs is because instead of your quarterback handing it off and getting out of the play, when your quarterback runs, you add an extra blocker now with that running back. So now you have 10 guys to block instead of 9. And then the other thing they do also is down at the goal line. They love to run Gronowski. He has 12 rushing touchdowns so far this year. That is by far the most on this team. So yes, be ready in the secondary for some of the throws, but when it comes to Gronowski, I'm focused more so on the run game first.
In that sense, would you say he's the most mobile quarterback USC's faced so far this season?
Yeah, I would say so in the sense of how many times he wants to run the football. He has 88 carries so far this year for 388 yards. That is second most on their team right now, on a team that likes to run the ball. But he's not the most athletic guy in the world. He's a good football player, no disrespect to Gronowski, but he's not a dual threat quarterback to where he's going to get back there, go to the right, run to the left, reverse field, hurdle a guy, do all these crazy things in the backfield, and then when you think you have him bottled up, he's going to pick up, a 15, 20-yard run. What he likes to do is go 1 to 2. If it's not there, take off and run. You're not going to see him slide a whole lot. He's going to lower his shoulder. It's more of a physical run game with Gronowski right now, almost like a glorified running back, a bigger body type running back. That's what Gronowski is, more so than a mobile quarterback who's going to do a ton of zone reads like Caleb did. He's not going to do a lot of Houdini stuff in the backfield. He's going to read. If it's not there, he's going to take off or do a zone read. If it's not there, take off, lower his shoulder, get a couple yards, and then keep the chains moving. That's really his type of game when it comes to running.
And to just back up your point there, Cody, he's the only player in the nation to score a touchdown in every game. He's scored the 7th most nationally overall as far as touchdowns, 4th most among quarterbacks, and he holds the single season record by an Iowa quarterback. So
Jeez.
It's crazy.
Well, but that's great input, because that just tells you when you're down at the goal line, when you're down in the red zone, when it's got to have it situations. If I'm Danton Lynn, I am expecting Gronowski to take off and run, then I'll react if they hand the ball off to one of their backs or they try to get a little quick pass going. But I'm going down there. My antenna's up with all those stats and with how much he's ran the football this year. I am thinking Gronowski run first, and then we'll react off of that, have our safeties, our secondary players be able to read and react if they give the ball to their back. So it's really good input. But moving off of that, speaking of the run game, and outside of Gronowski, what Leicester does a great job of and why they're so difficult to stop in the run game, or that's really what they lean on the most on the offensive side of the ball, is they're going to show you so many different looks, similar to what Lincoln Riley does. And I talked about this in the Nebraska game where we were using the 2 tight end looks, and we did zone read, then we did RPO, then we did pistol, then we did offset, then we had 12, 11 personnel constantly, and that's exactly what Leicester does. You think Iowa, you think downhill, power, physical offensive line. They have that, but he's done a good job these last couple of years as the offensive coordinator of giving you multiple different looks in the run game. They'll run downhill, they'll get under center, go power, go duo blocking, double team up to the second level. They have that, but they also do a good job of doing some guard tackle pull like we do at USC. They're going to leave that backside defensive end unblocked, let Gronowski read it. And if I'm Braylon Shelby, if I'm Anthony Lucas, if I'm Cameron Crawford this week, don't fall asleep. He's going to give it a couple times. He's going to hand it off. He's going to hand it off. And then as soon as you start to crash down and think, all right, I've seen it 4 or 5 times, I'm going to go make the play backside, he's going to pull it and hurt you on a 3rd and short or pick up an explosive play on 2nd down. We can't have that happen. Do your job. We have talked about that in the run game before. This is a huge week for that. They also like to get some plays on the outside. They'll use their receivers as a running back, get some fly motions like USC does with Mekhi Lemon, give him a little toss or a little pitch pass to where technically it's a throw, so the quarterback gets the stats, and we love those. We
of course you do.
We love a little one-foot touchdown pass, but they'll do some of that. They'll also do some with the running back, get them on the edge and get them outside. They have some good athletes on the offensive side of the ball. They'll also do some screens to the tight end, some extended handoffs, as we call them, get a quick motion, spin it out there. But the thing this week, why it's so important, is because the last couple of weeks, USC has been inconsistent with stopping the run. We did a good job against Michigan, struggled against Illinois, better against Nebraska, wasn't great, struggled against Notre Dame. It's been hot and cold this year. I promise you, Leicester has been watching hours and hours of cut-ups of USC against the run game this season. He is going to have everything in their game plan. He's going to want to force Danton Lynn and this defense to be uncomfortable with power, with outside zone, with maybe a couple reverse, couple trick plays, with zone read, guard, tackle, pull. So we've got to be ready for all of it. Now, we've been talking a lot about the run game for good reason. That's what they want to do. That's priority A this week. But when they do throw the football, a couple things to be ready for. Quick game. They want to get the ball out of Gronowski's hands. They don't do a ton of shots down the field. They're only averaging 5.8 yards per attempt. That's 131st in the country. And remember, that's out of 136 teams. Yeah. The ball is coming out. Slants, hitches, crossers, underneath, screens, everything you can think of that's within probably 7 to 8 yards, they're going to do it. That's what they want to live at, and especially this week with the rain and some of that being a factor. I expect when they do throw the football, again, be ready for quick game. That's why I was talking about earlier, I really want to see Danton Lynn load the box this week. If it's going to be quick game, trust that your guys can play man-to-man. Doesn't have to be press every time, but instead of being 7, 8 yards off, live at about 3 or 4 so you can react off their first move. If you want to have DeCarlos jam, if you want to have Marcellus jam, I'm great with that. But the other part of that is you have to be ready for some double moves. If we start getting too aggressive, playing too tight to the line of scrimmage, expect quick game a lot. Be ready for a slant and go. Be ready for a hitch and go. Be ready for a fade, too, on some of those. They want to take some shots on the outside if we're just constantly playing press man. But I would live and die by that first this week. Load the box, play man on the outside. If they start for some reason hurting you on the outside with the pass game, then you could expand a little bit, play a little bit more zone, play off coverage, maybe getting some too high. But I'm really focusing on taking the run game away and trying to have Gronowski beat us with his arm, especially pushing the ball down the field. Now, the last thing I want to mention, too, this week, not a ton of it, but they do a good job of when they use it, is pre-snap motion. And they use it with a purpose. They like to do it a lot out of bunch formations. And this is why I brought this note up. I was hesitant. I didn't see a ton of it, but against Oregon, they did it a couple times, and I thought it was worth noting because what have we talked about in the past? USC struggling with communication with bunch formation. Yep. That was early in the season. We haven't seen a ton, as of late, but I guarantee you when you're a coach, when you're an offensive coordinator, you're going back and watching every single film. Well, maybe your GAs and your QCs are, and they're going to bring you some evidence of why we should do this, and then offensive coordinators will look at all of that and then come up with the game plan off of those things. But if you go back and watch the tape against USC's defense early in the season, they gave up some easy touchdowns with bunch formations. What Iowa does a good job of is quick motions with those bunch formations. So when you're a defense, you look at a bunch, and it's 1, 2, and 3. Right, that's how you number the guys on a 3-by-1 bunch formation. They'll motion number 3 to the inside and make him 1. So that makes 1, 2, and 3 different. Now, if you're not communicating well, especially in man or even in zone, on who's taking who's in and out, they will hit some big plays. They had a big play against Oregon late in that game by doing a quick motion with bunch. They found their tight end over the middle. Oregon left them wide open because they couldn't tell who was who and which guy's supposed to take which guy. So I promise you, it might not be a huge note, but there's going to be a gotta-have-it situation, maybe on a third down or a third and medium where they're going to get in bunch, do a quick motion with the receiver, change everybody's number, who's 1, 2, and 3, force USC to communicate before they figure it out they're going to snap it. So we have to be perfect this week. I don't want that play to come up in a gotta-have-it situation in the fourth quarter where it hurts us. So again, I know they're not probably watching us on this breakdown, but I promise you Denton Lynn and his staff and Trevon Reed and Doug Belk are talking about this. Even Rob Ryan with the linebacker room, how are we going to in and out these calls this week? So not a ton of production so far this year on the offensive side of the ball for Iowa. That's really who they've been in recent years is we're going to play great defense. We're going to run the football. We're going to take some time off the clock. We're going to basically play defense on offense, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
We want to extend drives, run the ball, tire you down, keep Mayava and your offense off the field so you can't get in a rhythm, and then keep it a low-scoring game and find a way to win at the end. So, again, we've got to be great on defense, but it's going to be fun to watch. This is a different offense than USC has really faced.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different than what we've seen, a lot more slow-paced type offense, but it's still going to be a great challenge for the Trojans.
In some ways, is it a throwback to a old Stanford of the Pac-12?
Yeah, and that's a great comparison. That's kind of what my mind flashed back to when I was watching the film of Iowa on the offensive side of the ball, and I had flashbacks because I remember when you played Stanford and you're the opposing offense, you don't know how many possessions you're going to get. I mean, you might get to a half at some point because Stanford wanted to come out. They wanted to go 12 to 15 play drives, go 75 yards, take 9 or 10 minutes off the clock, go 2 yards, 3 yards, 6 yards on third down. 4 yards, 5 yards, maybe a 10 or 12-yard pass, but they're just going to run the football over and over and force you to get out of your rhythm on the offensive side of the ball. And, I mean, there would be times where it's 30, 40 minutes in between possessions, not in game clock time, but in real time because of how much they would run the football, a timeout, a TV timeout, and I haven't thrown a pass in 30, 45 minutes. And then you go to halftime even – it could be even longer. So
how much does that impact you as a quarterback?
It is. It's a huge thing, man. That's why I say Iowa can play defense while they're playing offense because they can keep your offense off the ball. They're not going to come out and put up 500 yards every game. I mean, they're only averaging 300. USC averages more passing yards per game than Iowa does running the football right now, or they're right around the same, but what they do a good job of is extending drives and keeping the ball away from your offense. That's also why their defense plays so well because they don't give up a ton of possessions, so there's not a lot of opportunities to put up some yards. But I will say this, the disparity between the two is Stanford, in my opinion, had a little bit more production on the offensive side of the ball with Hogan, with Andrew Luck, with Gaffney, with some of those running backs that they had. They did a really good job of still creating explosive plays. Iowa just hasn't found consistency yet under Lester. They've shown flashes of it, haven't quite got there, but that's a good point. That's really a good comparison, at least what they're trying to do when it comes to this Iowa offense.
Now, I know we're not in the USC-Iowa defensive section yet, but I want to discuss this because we're talking about it. If you're USC, we saw against Northwestern that USC was able to kind of put together slow, methodical drives.
Yeah.
Do you play that game against a team that will also try and do that, or do you, if you want to go quick tempo, you go?
I am going. If I'm Lincoln Riley in this game, if we win the toss, give me the football. We're going down and scoring because this offense doesn't want to play from behind. Their MO is let's get the lead. Let's keep you to maybe 12, like a weird scoring 10 to 12 to maybe a 9 points like against Oregon in the first half. Let's keep it close. We'll score maybe 7. And then in the second half, we're going to slow the game down even more and play our style of football.
Gotcha. We
can't buy into that. If I'm Lincoln Riley, yes, be two-dimensional. You still want to run the football. King Miller's been playing really well. Offensive line's been blocking great, and we'll talk about what they do on defense. It's going to be a huge challenge, probably our biggest challenge so far this year, going up against this Iowa defense. But if I'm Lincoln Riley, I'm coming out and saying, hey, Gronowski, Lester, can you guys keep up with us? Now, it's easier said than done because Iowa doesn't give up a lot of points, but that's at least my mindset going into this game. Take the ball first, go down and score. If we can get a 7, even 14-point lead, if we can put up 14 points in the first half, 21 would be amazing, but if we can get to 14 in the first half and keep that rhythm in the second half, I really, really like our chances, which is rare to say because we're used to seeing this offense put up maybe 28 a half.
Yeah.
But I would take 14 to 17 in the first half. 21 would be unbelievable, and force them to try to play behind the entire game.
Wow, okay. Now, taking us back to how USC's defense should approach this Iowa offense, I feel like throughout the season we've seen USC's defense be a little bit stronger when a team is only one-dimensional offensively. Yeah. And I know against Notre Dame, you almost wanted Lynn to sell out a little bit more to stop the run. Is that the prescription for this, where you want just stop the run and figure it out?
Yes. Like I said, I'm loading the box. And again, I trust Danton Lynn fully. I'm just saying, when I watch film, my mindset, every time I watch Iowa on offense, loading the box, knowing personnel first is most important. Is it 12? Is it 11? Is it 13? What are they doing? Is he under center or is it spread? Get that figured out first. And then after that, I'm loading the box. I'm playing man-to-man on the outside, and I am forcing you to try. Let's see if they even do it. Are you going to try to run against an 8-man box every single time? Or are you going to be disciplined enough to say, all right, we're going to play outside of our style of play and we're going to throw the football? Because it's almost impossible to run against an 8-man box big if, everyone does their job. Yes. If you put 8 guys in the box and you have 3 guys in the B gap, it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And there were times against Notre Dame where we were loading the box and guys were just undisciplined or getting moved off their spot. Lining up in the right thing and the right formation or the right defense is half the battle. You still got to go out and accomplish it. It's easier said than done. But yeah, if I'm Danton Lynn this week, man, let's load the box. Force Gronowski to try to beat us with his arm. He has 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions this year through 9 games. They do not want to throw the football. He only has 1,000 yards passing. They're averaging 133 yards per game passing. They're averaging 175 yards per game running the football. You don't see that a whole lot in this era of college football, to where you're averaging more on the ground than you are through the air. There's a select few teams, but really it's interesting to see how Danton Lynn's going to go up against this game or prepare for this game. But I would love to see him load the box and trust our corners on the outside.
I would just like to give a Cody's getting hype alert.
I'm hyped.
I love it.
I love it. I mean, I wish we could get up with the film. I wish we can get a film right now and break it down and talk it all.
Oh my gosh.
It's I go home, Keely, I do 2 things. I hang out with my wife, my son, and my dog, and then I go sit in my office and watch all 22 game film for hours every day.
You got all 22?
I did get all, not for college. I got it for NFL.
I was about to be like, my God, breaking news.
I've got some good underground YouTube channels that have been posting the full game.
Okay, look at that.
Not going to shout. Last time we gave someone a shout out, they got kicked off the internet.
Yeah.
So we do have some YouTube channels out there that post full games.
It's secret safe.
Yeah, so I get the wide view at least.
Amazing. Well, with the wide view, what did you see on personnel for Iowa's offense?
Yeah, I'm going to start with their quarterback. We've already talked about him a lot. Mark Gronowski, 6'2", 235-pound senior. He spent his first 4 years at South Dakota State before transferring to Iowa this season. It's interesting, though, Keely, because he had a lot of success at South Dakota State throwing the football. He had multiple years where it was 28 touchdowns, only 4 or 5 interceptions, 20-plus touchdowns, 5 interceptions. For whatever reason this year, they just can't find a rhythm with him when it comes to throwing the football. Through 9 games, I already mentioned it, but 1,000 yards passing, 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Just not enough production if you want to be explosive on the offensive side of the ball. Now, where they do have production is in the run game, and the guy they want to get the ball to is running back Kamari Moulton. He's a 5'9" sophomore who leads the team in both carries and rushing yards. He has 105 carries, 522 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Now, he's their leading rusher with 2 touchdowns. Gronowski has 12 rushing touchdowns. So
wild. Okay.
That kind of tells you how much they like to use Gronowski down by the goal line. Now, when it comes to throwing the football, not a ton of production. But what Gronowski does a good job of, and Lester, is finding ways to spread the ball around. They'll get multiple guys involved in the pass game throughout the game, so you've got to be ready for everybody. The first one is wide receiver Sam Phillips. He leads the team with 216 receiving yards. Another wide receiver is Jacob Gill. Now, this next wide receiver, he was close to getting a red dot on the offensive side of the ball, not because of the production, but because of the way that they use him, and that's wide receiver Caden Weegan. He is dangerous with the ball in his hands. That they like to find so many different ways to get him the ball. He'll play receiver. He'll play running back. They'll give him screens. They'll give him end arounds, those little touch passes. 21 is who they want to get the ball to. So if you don't account for him, he is going to hurt you, and it's both in the pass game and the run game. So we got to know where he's at all times on the field. Not a ton of production on offense. That's why he didn't quite get the red dot, but he's probably the closest one to it on the offensive side of the ball. And then when it comes to tight ends, they got a couple good ones, but one guy they got to focus on this week is DJ Vanami, 6'4" freshman, and he caught a touchdown last week against Oregon down by the goal line.
Now, it's fascinating to me that you almost gave a red dot to Weejan because apparently this is my thing now. If I may, I will give a red dot on special teams to Weejan.
Oh, yeah, that's a great point.
He is dangerous both on punt and kick return. I actually talked to Coach Riley about it on Tuesday, and he was like, this is another big week for special teams. You got to know where he's at. He, I believe, is second in the nation in punt return average, so he's definitely someone to look out for on special teams.
Iowa just keeps doing that, too. Cooper DeJean a couple of years ago, now Weejan. They just find those talented athletes back there that they put on the return game. But that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. I talk offense, I talk defense. I'm not going to lie, I don't watch a ton of special teams. It's not my thing. But that's a great note, Keely, and this is a big week. If USC gets momentum, if you go down and score on the offensive side of the ball, it can't be like some of the letdowns we had at Notre Dame where we give up a big return. Not even a touchdown, just a huge explosive play in the return game that gives them momentum right back. So they got to really focus on Weejan, and that's how they use them on offense. Let's spread everybody out. Let's hand the ball off to him, give him some punt return lanes type situations, get him on the edge and let him do what he does best. So I'm glad you brought that up. That's something to focus on this week.
Now I want to transition us, Cody, to the best matchup, I would say, of Saturday, a top offense going against a top defense. Before we do, just want to give a thanks to Audi. What you expect from an SUV is a range of sizes to fit your lifestyle. Expectations matter, but exceeding them matters more. The Audi family of SUVs, progress you can feel. Alrighty, Cody, looking at Iowa's defense, who's at the helm?
Yeah, this Iowa defense is led by Phil Parker. Now, Parker has been at Iowa since Kirk Ferentz has been at Iowa when he took back over as the head coach in 1999. Parker first coached defensive backs from 1999 to 2011, and then he took over as a defensive coordinator from 2012 up until now. He has been responsible for some of the best defenses in the history of college football, and this year is no difference. He has put together a very good defense on that side of the ball. They're fourth in total defense, only giving up 250 yards per game, and they're fifth in scoring defense, Keely. They're only giving up 13 points per game. It is extremely tough to move the football against this defense, and it's extremely tough to finish in the end zone against this defense.
Now, that's so impressive that I want to ask follow-up questions, but I know you, and I know you're about to tell me or answer everything that I have, so I will hold off on that. I just have to note, though, being there since 1999 is insane.
Right.
Like, the amount the world has changed since they walked in the door, just absurd.
And that's a good point, too. Like, that's why they're so good on defense. You talk about continuity and chemistry and consistency. When you have the same defensive coach, I know he was a DB coach first, but you've had the same defensive-minded coach since 1999 and the same head coach, you build that foundation early on, and then you have guys that come in through the system and they develop, and there are a lot of homegrown players. They don't go a ton to the transfer portal on the defensive side of the ball, and I always look up personnel. I'm like, all right, where'd this guy go first? Where's this guy from? When you look at the guys on the defensive side of the ball, even offense, a lot of them are Iowa. I mean, from 2021 to now, 2022 to now, guys have stayed and developed within their organization, and you see it pay off on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, with Danton Lynn, we talked about when he first got here, or really any coordinator, when you get to a new place, first year we can do 1, maybe 1A. We don't want to do too much and overload, guys with information. Year 2, we can go to 1B and 1C. Phil Parker, on their day one install, they're at 1Z already. I mean, they've installed pretty much everything. Now the young guys have to learn on the fly, and they're going to have to get acclimated, but you have vets and leaders in that room, like Kamari Ramsey was for Danton Lynn, that help guys get up to speed. And it's really paying off for them on the defensive side of the ball, and that's why he's had year in and year out some of the best defenses in college football. And
I'm sure that helps in recruiting in the sense that you know what you're getting with an Iowa defense. So there's no like wishy-washy, if I'm a recruit, do I want to go here? You know what to expect if you want to go to Iowa.
Yeah, and that's tough nowadays, though, Keely. I mean, I think it has to do with how long Phil Parker's been there, but normally when you have a good DC or a good OC, what happens the next year? You're getting a phone call for a head coaching job and you're gone. So it's tough to build that continuity, and guys are constantly learning a new scheme. Phil Parker, that's not been the case. 1999, Ferentz and Parker, they have been there. They've built something special, and it's going to be a great challenge for USC on offense.
Alrighty, Cody. Well, tell us what you saw on film about this defense.
Yeah, this is another 4-2-5 defense this week, meaning they're going to have 4 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, 5 defensive backs. That 5th DB is going to be that nickel linebacker. Now, they will stay in 4-2-5 the majority of the game. It's not just against 11 personnel where it's 3 wide receivers, 1 running back, 1 tight end. They're also going to stay in nickel when you get to some of those 12 personnel looks. Lincoln Riley this year has used a lot of 2 tight end looks with Walker Lyons and Lake McCree. I expect Parker to still stay in nickel defense against those guys and trust their nickel defender to cover one of our pass-catching tight ends, or even a safety to come out of the box and cover him as well. So that's something to keep an eye on. This is a disciplined, physical defense. That's the best way that I could describe them. There's really no weaknesses on the defensive side of the ball. They are 17th in rushing defense. They're 5th in passing defense. This is another week. If I'm Jaden Mayava saying I got to be great, I got to be perfect. Last week you played Northwestern, who was 13th in the country in passing defense. The week before you played Nebraska, who was 2nd in the country in passing defense. This week against Iowa, you got the 5th best passing defense in the country. He has to be sharp in this game. USC has to be great on the offensive side of the ball. They got to be two-dimensional. Got to still run it. I mentioned you want to be explosive on offense, try to put some points up early. You can still be explosive on the ground as well. There's big plays to be made both through the air, on the ground. There's just not a lot of them. So when you get those opportunities, if I'm Jaden Mayava this week and I have a shot down the field, versus man, versus zone, whatever it may be, you've got to hit it. You cannot miss on those because you're not going to get a ton of opportunities for explosive plays. In the run game, if you have your fits great and you're working up to the second level and King Miller has some room to go and some space to work, you got to make maybe one guy miss and find explosive plays in the ground game as well. Once you get this Iowa defense on their heels, that's when you can attack. But if they're playing downhill, if they're playing aggressive, if they're dictating what we're doing like they want to do for the majority of the game, it's going to be tough to put some points up and move the ball. But we've got one of the best offensive minds in all of college football, so I feel great about that. Now, why they really excel on the defensive side of the ball, in my opinion, yeah, they're physical up front, but the best part of this defense is the secondary. There's really not a lot of space to work in the back end. They do a good job in man-to-man. They do a good job in zone. They mix it up really well, too. And a big part of that is, remember, Phil Parker was a defensive backs coach from 1999 to 2011. Then he took over as defensive coordinator, but continued to coach the defensive backs. So that is his specialty, is the back end, and that reflects in their play. I mean, in man-to-man, you watch the film, tell me where the weakness is. Tell me who you can get the ball to. I mean, I like some of the slot plays. I think working against their nickel defender, maybe their safety, we can find some advantages. But on the outside, Jacoby Lane, Mekhi Lemon, it's going to be a great challenge. But to that point, we also do have Jacoby Lane and Mekhi Lemon, so it's going to be a big challenge for them as well. It's just, if you like, matchups on the outside, if you like wide receivers versus lockdown corners, I promise you're not going to want to miss this one on Saturday. In zone, they are so disciplined at passing things off. They don't take the bait a lot to where coaches try to get you to bite on an underneath so we can take it over the top or fall off on the over top. We'll take the underneath. Guys are so disciplined at doing their job that it's tough to create advantages in the pass game against zone. They have 2-for-1 corners. Go back and watch that first interception that Dante Moore threw against Iowa. It's a double seam route, or he has kind of a seam route on the left side. The corner, who's supposed to be in that deep third, knows that maybe the ball's not going outside, so I'm going to fall off and cheat, play 2-for-1. I can play the inside seam and the outside go, and I'm going to jump in front. It's tough. Where you can find advantages, though, and this is kind of getting off topic, but throw a couple seams and then maybe pump one inside, go outside. Now I'm getting into Cody talk right now. We're getting into football talk, but my whole point is, when you're throwing the ball against this secondary, you've got to know what they're doing pre-snap. You got to know that it's going to change post-snap. You got to confirm what the coverage is because they mix and match a lot of coverages. One high is probably not going to be one high post-snap. It's going to turn to 2 high. Cover 2 is going to turn to 6. 6 might turn to 4. Zone looks like 2, cover 2, then it's 2-man. They're going to match underneath. They do so many different things on the defensive side of the ball, but they're not one of those defenses to where they're doing too much, where it's information overload, and there's a lot of windows and a lot of gaps to find some throws. They are so good at being disciplined, mixing up their coverages, and then still performing well on the back end. With that being said, though, this is not a huge pressure defense with their front seven. They'll mix up some of their pressure looks here and there, but they're really good at just lining up and going. We're going to line up. We're going to have a 6-man box. We're going to trust those 6 guys to stop the run. I'm going to have 5 or 6 guys maybe in coverage off of that. Sometimes I'll even get into a 5-man box. That's how much they trust their linebackers and they trust their defensive line to stop the run, to fill the gaps for a good reason. They get a lot of push, that they're physical up front, but they're not going to bring a ton of pressure looks. They're going to have the occasional maybe single linebacker pressure. They might bring a double linebacker pressure. They like to bring their nickel back a couple times off the edge, drop some ends, do some zone drop pressure as well, but they're not going to line up down after down after down and just keep blitzing you. They're going to line up with a 4-2-5. This is what we run, try to come out and beat us. And they're going to play disciplined football, and they do a good job of that because they have the players on the defensive side of the ball to accomplish that. Now, this is a defense that's going to mix up their pressure looks, and it kind of depends on the team that they're playing. When you watch the film, they like to just line up in a 6-man box, play coverage on the back end. Basically, this is what we're going to do, try to come out and beat us. They don't do a ton of things to where they're moving around with their front 7. They'll mix up their coverages, but front 7 is we're going to trust our 4 guys up front. We're going to have our 2 linebackers, even 1 linebacker sometimes. If you're getting in those, widened splits, they'll take a linebacker out of the box, have a 5-man box, and still trust that they can stop the run and win their one-on-ones. But when I watched the Oregon game last week, wasn't a ton of pressure. It was a lot more of a vanilla type of defense when it came to their blitz looks and their blitz packages. But then I went back and watched Minnesota, similar situation. But then when I watched the Indiana game, a lot more pressure. They started bringing one linebacker blitzes. They started bringing some two linebacker blitzes and dropping defensive ends, some of those zone pressures, as we call them. They were bringing their nickel back off the end. I haven't seen a ton of secondary pressure, but be ready for them to bring different combinations of the 4 defensive linemen and then any of those 3 linebackers, including that nickel defender. So if I'm Lincoln Riley going into this game, I'm anticipating both. It could be a game where they come out and say, hey, we're worried about you hurting us in the back end. We don't want to bring an extra linebacker and be depleted with our coverage, so we're not going to bring a ton of blitz looks. Or this week they could say, hey, we know you like to sit back and throw the football. We're going to make 14 uncomfortable. We want Maava to have to get the ball out quick, so we're going to start bringing some more blitzes. So I would anticipate both. Now, if it is a blitz-heavy game, I really like how our offensive line's been playing. I know they've had some injuries, had to rotate a lot, but this front 7 for Iowa hasn't got home a whole lot. They do a good job of creating some pressure. They have 3 guys with their defensive line that can get to the quarterback, but they only have 17 sacks this year. That's 82nd in college football, and those 3 guys combined, we'll talk about them in the personnel group, have 14 of them. So,
wow, okay.
Again, this is a game to where they do a great job of covering on the back end. They're really good at stopping the run, but it's not going to be a ton of pressure getting to the quarterback. Don't let that fool you, though. If we aren't good in our pass pickups, if we aren't good in our communication, they could have a completely different package this week that we haven't seen before on film or mix some things up. Now, I don't know how many different things you can do after, 26 years or 27 years of being at the same program with your defense, but you never know. The defenses, nowadays are always evolving, so you got to keep an eye on that. But again, it's going to be a huge week for communication, but the biggest thing for this defense or for USC's offense is you've got to hit those shots when they're there because you're not going to have a lot of them.
Was there anything in Indiana's offensive attack that would dictate them blitzing more?
I think they were just worried about Fernando Mendoza in that game. And then I think that Dante Moore is a good quarterback, but the weather played a factor in that to where they said, all right, we're not going to have to put a ton of pressure on Moore. We're going to try to see if he can throw it in the rain. We're going to stop the run. That's their type of game. So that's why this week, too, against USC, my first thought as a defense coordinator would be, all right, let's make Jaden Maava uncomfortable. I don't want him to sit back there and pick us apart like they did with Fernando Mendoza, who, in my opinion, is probably going to be the first quarterback taken in the draft this upcoming year. So they wanted to get some more pressure on him and get him out of rhythm. But this week with USC, it could be similar to Oregon. As all right, it's going to be raining. I don't know how much USC is going to lean on throwing the football. They might have to run it more. So we're just going to load the box, not bring a ton of pressure, or play 6 or 7 man box, stop the run, and then see if he can win on man-to-man or he can be accurate in the rain. So it's hit or miss. I'm curious to see what Parker's going to do. But when you have a defensive coordinator like that, with the amount of time that he's had and the experience and the continuity on the defensive side of the ball with your players, you can change game plan from week to week and still have a lot of success. Yeah. And we're seeing it in real time with this defense.
Now, when it comes to Lincoln Riley's success on offense, how much of it is, obviously USC has just a base level of talent on offense, but how much of it is preying on either a lack of communication by a defense or, building off of tendencies that you're going to try and guess on and kind of bait you?
That's exactly what it is. It's a combination of a lot of things, man. This could be an episode on its own, and I'll just briefly though. But Lincoln Riley is so good at attacking what you do good and making it a weakness. I mentioned that they're so good with their communication when it comes to playing zone, and obviously he'll attack your weaknesses first.
Sure.
But any coordinator can do that.
Yeah.
Hey, this team can't. It struggles against man. All right, well, we're going to take shots first man. Oh, this team struggles with outside zone. Let's just run outside zone until, the sun goes down. Let's just keep doing it over and over. But what Lincoln Riley does is he takes that next step. This team is really good at passing off zone plays, but I promise you this week he's in there with his pencil and the door's locked and probably the lights dimmed down a little bit, and he's coming up with how I'm going to beat their quarters, how I'm going to beat their cover 6, how I'm going to beat their 2-man. I'm going to show you some different things you haven't seen before. I'm going to show you probably the same formation 5 different times in this game, and I'm going to have 5 different play calls off of that. Run game, the same thing. Like, he's so good, and it's tough to explain without breaking down film, but he's so good at always having a plan in place because play calling is an art. Anybody could get up there with the play call sheet and go, call this one, call that one, call this one.
Yeah.
He's always 3 or 4 steps ahead of what he's going to do next because he's baiting you and he's setting you up and he's setting you up, and then I'm going to run it. And it's so much fun to watch, but this is going to be his biggest challenge because Phil Parker's not a guy that's going to fall for that a lot. And they have discipline and experience in the back end as well with their secondary. So this is another week, though, for Lincoln Riley and going up against a defensive coordinator. I mean, Northwestern, Nebraska, Michigan, Illinois, the defenses that we've faced so far this year in the Big Ten. And even if they're not the best in the conference, they're still pretty dang good.
Yeah.
But this is, in my opinion, the best in the conference. Oregon's really good too. I won't jump too far ahead when it comes to
defense.
I know, but it's going to be a lot of fun to watch, and I can't wait to see the game plan that Lincoln Riley comes up with. Because after this game's over, I promise you, I'm going to watch what he does in this game and go back and try to figure out, okay, did he bait them with the Northwestern game, the Nebraska game, some things that they've ran recently that Parker's watching on film, and then he has something off of that. So it's going to be awesome.
Can't wait. That is a good plug to watch the recap podcast.
Yeah.
When we record on Sunday. How
Every
about that?
Sunday.
Now, I know I cut you off, Cody. You have a couple more points to say about this Iowa defense. Take it away.
Yeah, just a couple more things I want to add. Although they mix up their pressure, regardless of if they're blitzing or not, their linebackers are very aggressive and they play downhill. Why is that important? Because of the success that USC has had running the football, as soon as you start to hand it off, whether it's pistol and you're turning around or it's those zone read plays, their linebackers are going to trigger. And if you are late up front with your offensive line getting off of your combo blocks, normally when you have a downhill run scheme, you're going to A block, which is a combo between the center guard, B block, which is a combo between the guard and the tackle. You're working double teaming that first defensive lineman, then you're coming off to that linebacker. What they do a good job of is when I say trigger, as soon as they see the guards start to go or you start to hand the ball off, they're going to try to beat that offensive lineman so that they can't get off and block into the linebacker. So it's tough, and they're really disciplined at knowing when to trigger and knowing when to fall back. They're reading their keys. They do a good job of that. The other thing, guard, tackle, pull. When you have, say we're pulling the right guard and the right tackle around, left side's all blocking down. As soon as those linebackers see that, they're going to try to beat your linebacker to their pull spot, meaning by the time you get around, you're not going to be able to work up and take the hit to them. They're going to try to bring the hit to you. And if you're not quick and athletic with your steps and you're not there in time, they're going to blow up the play in the backfield. You have to be really good. Like I mentioned, you're not 17th in the country in run defense and 5th in pass defense if you're not complimentary in your football, both in the pass game and the run game. They do it both very well. So that's a big note for us to have. I really think, though, off of that, because of how aggressive their linebackers are, big week for play action. Let's get some of those ride fakes, pot pass to Lake McCree or Walker Lyons over the middle when you have those linebackers trigger. Get some of those ride fakes, have them bite down, deep cross to Mekhi Lemon where you throw it over the linebacker and underneath the safety. Have a deep cross to Tanuk Hines. Maybe send Jacoby Lane with his big body over the middle of the field too to go up and climb the ladder and catch one over those linebackers when they're triggering in the run game. So it's going to be, again, something to keep an eye on. But if we're not disciplined and athletic and quick and getting up to that second level, it's going to be tough to run the football against the Hawkeyes. And then the last thing, everything I just mentioned, everybody talking about defense, let's throw it all out the window. Forget everything I said for the next 2 minutes because we're going to talk about third down, which is a game within a game. This is where pressure does go up. I don't care who they're playing. They're going to start unloading the box, meaning they're going to walk their linebackers up on the edge. They're going to walk them up to the line of scrimmage. They're going to move their safeties down low. They're going to play aggressive. They have all-out cover zero, to where they're blitzing everybody and they're leaving their corners and their safeties on an island. They did it on a gotta-have-it situation against Indiana. Then they did it again on a third down situation at the end of the game with 1:45 left. Fernando Mendoza figured it out the second time, got the play picked up, hit a slant, made one guy miss, and he scored. So there's big plays to be had, but if you don't anticipate it and you're not ready for cover zero, in those third and fourth down situations, they are going to make a play in the backfield. Keely, this is the number one defense in the country in fourth down. They do not give up fourth down conversions because of how aggressive they play in those. And I say gotta have it situations, I'm meaning that it's boom or bust. If you don't get the first down, it's a turnover. If you don't extend the drive, the game's over. And those gotta have it situations, especially fourth down, they are phenomenal. Now, the last thing I'll mention, and they do their typical Danton Lynn stuff too, overload aside, walk up the backers, try to get you to go left, bring the pressure right, mix coverages. A lot of the stuff we see on third down, but something that they do that is unique and is worth noting is they use a radar front. Now, what is a radar front? That means they're going to have every single player that's up at the line of scrimmage, D tackle, D end. Think Cameron Crawford. They're going to have Jade Abasiri. They're going to have Devin Tompkins. All of our big guys up front, Jakeem Stewart, they're going to be stood up, and they're going to be kind of just moving around in a circle. And they're going to be all, I'm serious, it's called radar defense,
so
to where they're
funny
kind of like hopping around, and guys are, no one's hands in the dirt, no one's lined up on a shade as a 3-tech, as an outside wide 9. Everyone's just kind of bouncing around like a little, like a what do you
nucleus.
Call it? Yeah, there you go. That's a good way of putting it. They're all kind of moving around, and then as soon as they get a key on your cadence before you snap it, they all walk up to the line, and then they go, and they mix it up. And they do it a couple times, and it's tough. Normally what you want to do is, okay, I know the numbers. 49's a D end. This 95's a D tackle. Okay, those are the 4 down. There's the backer. Let's go with our normal calls. But it's tough because it's called radar is what we call it. So it's guys bouncing around, moving around in a circle. Right before the ball snap, they all go. And they're all in a 2-point stance stood up. So that's something to note. But third down, okay, we're back to everything again. Third down's over. But third down is a game within a game. But overall, this is going to be a huge challenge. I know I spoke a lot. I know I mentioned a lot of things. I like to give you everything to look at, too, when we go into these game plans. So, hey, Cody mentioned that, or I saw that, or maybe if you're going to talking to some of your friends, that, hey, watch out this week, man. Iowa does that radar defense. Radar? What do you, it's when they bounce around up front. But
we actually got a comment about that, and shout out on our last preview episode. Someone said that they got people around them at the Coliseum in their seats to start listening to the preview. So it's like a pop quiz, like, oh, do you know this is coming? So there you go. I just thought it was a cool comment.
This isn't a hot take podcast. It's not where I'm saying do this, do that, we win the game. This is, if I am a coach, if I'm a scout, if I'm a player in this game, I'm trying to give you real insight. If I'm in the locker room watching game film, now we'll have some hot takes, obviously, and some surface level stuff. Hey, run the ball well, stop the run, do that. But I like to give you kind of a background into what an offense and a defensive coordinator looks at when they're watching film, and how can we beat this team, or how can they beat us, and what's it going to come down to when you talk about X's and O's.
It's for our football nerds. If you're not one, you are at this point.
We love everybody, but pretty much. Yeah. We should, man. We should start doing little off-season. Write that down, Emily.
Merch. Yeah.
We're going to do some quizzes on, hey, what's a radar front? What's a 4-2-5?
Oh, my gosh.
What's a 12 personnel? And see if people can answer them in the comments.
If people don't know the
maybe do a little
12,
giveaway.
13 personnel by now, I feel like they are not paying attention.
What's 12 personnel, Keely?
1 running back, 2 tight ends.
How many receivers?
2. 3. 2.
Nah,
you're counting to 5.
You're counting to 5. There you go.
No, the problem is I was actually about to ask you a follow-up question, so if I may.
Hit me, let's go.
So you talked about their success with fourth down defense.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you when we talked about Weejan, if you don't want to punt to him, and USC's been aggressive on fourth down, but then you just mentioned their fourth down defense is good. What do you do if you're Lincoln Riley?
You don't shy away from that. Now, obviously, if they're a good fourth down defense, you just got to bring your A game this week. But that doesn't mean you don't go for it on fourth down if that's been who you are. Lincoln Riley loves to go for it on fourth down. I would not anticipate him to get out there this week and go, all right, it's 4th and 5, and we're on their 38, and we have a chance to go make a play, go finish in the end zone, because you don't know how many opportunities you're going to get against this offense. They're going to like to run the ball down. They like to keep time of possession on their side.
Yeah.
So if you have a 4th and manageable situation on their side of the field, you can't just go, all right, Iowa's great on fourth down, punt. Still go for it, because you know what? We're pretty good on fourth down too, and we're good at finding ways to get conversions. And I know some of those got-to-have-it situations this year, Notre Dame, and some of those games we could have been better, but we still have a dang good play caller that can still watch the fourth down tape. What do they do well? They like cover zero. They like to drop off. They like to bluff. We're going to come up with a game plan off of that. But no, you can't focus on those external factors on what Iowa does. You still have to focus on what we do, because Iowa, at the end of the day, still has to stop us on fourth down too. So you got to play that type of situation. But where you do have a good point, though, is if we are punting it, I never want to say be afraid of a player, but I'm okay if Sam Johnson this week wants to punt it out of bounds a couple times and not give Weejan some opportunities, especially with some room to work.
That's some respect from you. I know if you're saying that.
He's a good player back there, man. He's dangerous.
Now, you alluded to this, and I have to say, when I looked through your notes briefly, I was shocked when I got to the defensive personnel section, because that is, I think, a record for the Victory Pod. This is the longest section you've had so far. Take us away. What are you seeing?
Yeah, this Iowa defense has a lot of playmakers on the back end, but the first one that they need to be ready for is my first red dot player of the week, and that's safety Xavier Wampa. He's got 51 tackles, 1 interception, and 1 forced fumble so far this year. He's a leader on this defense. He is all over the field. We got to know where he is at all times. The other safety next to him is a good football player too. That's Cohen and Tringer. He's second on the team right now in tackles with 53. On the outside, Iowa has 2 very good corners. They can travel and play man-to-man against both Jacoby Lane and Mekhi Lemon. The first one's TJ Hall, and the second one is Deshaun Lee. Now, Hall has 8 pass breakups so far this year, 1 interception, and Lee has 5 pass breakups and 2 interceptions. You know, when you talk about sticky coverage, Dion used to always say it.
Yep.
Shout out to our old co-host Dion Bailey. This is the definition of sticky coverage. Both these guys are really good when they play man-to-man, and they have to travel against your premier playmakers on the outside. And we've talked about their nickel defender multiple times this episode. That's for good reason. His name is Zach Lutmer. He's only a sophomore, but he is a playmaker on the defensive side of the ball. 49 tackles, 1 sack, 2 interceptions, and a fumble recovery. USC needs to know where number 6 is at all point in times in this game. Now, looking at the linebacker core in the middle of this defense, USC needs to be ready for a couple guys. The first one is linebacker Carson Shire, 6'2", 235-pound senior. He leads the team with 56 tackles. He also has 1 sack as well. He is going to be the guy that sets the defense in the middle. He's going to be the mic call for the majority of this game. When it comes to protection and sending your offensive line to certain guys, you got to be ready to know where he is at. But keep an eye on two other guys on this defense. The first one is Jaden Montgomery. He's been the starter as of late at that linebacker spot, but senior Jaden Harrell has been out with an injury for the last couple of weeks. He was up and down if it was going to be time for him to return against Oregon. I think he was a game-time decision is what I read, so I would expect him to maybe be ready to go for this game. He hasn't played since the Penn State game, but if Harrell is healthy, I would expect both Montgomery and Harrell to get some snaps in this game, so USC up front has to prepare for both linebackers, both very good players too, and they complement Shire well in the middle of this defense, but up front, USC's offensive line has to be ready for three guys on Iowa's defensive line, three very good football players. The first one is my second red dot player of the week on defense. That's DN Max Llewellyn. He leads the team right now with 6 sacks on the year. He has 2 forced fumbles. He also has 3 pass defense. When I see a defensive end that has pass defense, that tells me what? They're getting tip footballs. Yep. He does a good job. If he's not going to get home, he gets his hands up. He's going to knock the ball down. He'll also drop into coverage a couple times when they bring some of those zone pressure looks, so you got to be ready for him on some of those underneath routes. Going to be a big challenge for both Tawanu'u and Elijah Page in this game. They've got to be great in their one-on-ones. And then the next guy in the middle of this defense is a game wrecker, and that's the reason he's my third red dot player of the week for this Hawkeye defense. That is defensive tackle Aaron Graves, 6'5", 300-pound senior. He has 30 tackles, 4 sacks. He has an interception, and he's a big part of this run defense, and he's made it difficult for opposing offenses to run the ball between the tackles. USC's interior of this offensive line has to be great going up against Graves, who's 95 this week. It's going to be a huge challenge for them. And then another guy to keep an eye on for this Hawkeye defense is defensive end Ethan Herkett. He also has 4 sacks on the year, and he complements Llewellyn well on the opposite side at defensive end.
So not only the longest section for defensive personnel, but 3 red dot players?
3 of them.
Wow.
I mean, you're not a top 5 defense in the entire country if you don't have play. I mean, it could have been more too.
Fair.
The amount of playmakers on the defensive side of the ball. I'm not trying to scare everybody. It's going to be a great challenge. I'm not, I don't want it to make it sound like, oh, we have no chance. We've got some red dot players on offense as well that Iowa has to be ready for. But if you love chess matches, if you love watching a great offense going up against a great defense, make sure your eyes are glued to the screen or to the field if you're at the Coliseum being loud when USC's offense on the field going up against Iowa's defense.
There you go. Alrighty, Cody, I want to get to questions. Before we do, just want to give a thanks to Ralph's. At Ralph's, you get high quality and low prices, so you never have to compromise your budget. Save on thousands of items throughout the store. Ralph's, fresh for everyone. Now, full disclosure, we had a schedule change in the studio availability, and you will see why, and we'll tell you what happened, but not yet. That's under wraps for now. But I'm going to abbreviate the questions portion, Cody, just so we can get out of here on time and be respectful to our other studio hosts.
Okay.
So I apologize to Chris, Mimi, some other people who ask questions. I have them. They will be asked another time when we have time. But I'm going to keep it to game-specific questions for our abbreviated section here, Cody. First one, Fighting on MC said USC is a different team at home and Iowa is a different team on the road. How much does that factor into this matchup?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that goes for all teams, though, really, Keely. We've seen that in the Big Ten. It's tough for that team that's traveling almost halfway across the country to come play football. You got the time change. You got to adjust everything. So it is an advantage to be at home. USC has obviously been better this year at home. And really, since Lincoln Riley's been here, they've been dominant at home, and that's a big part, too, of the fans. So if you guys are going to this game, be loud, create that home atmosphere. But for Iowa, they're going to have to travel across the country. Early game, wake up, be ready to go. The time change doesn't affect them as much as it does a West Coast team going to the Midwest or the East Coast, but there's still some variables involved, especially with your schedule changing. So USC has to take advantage of that and not allow Iowa to start fast in this game.
I'm combining 2 questions here. Trojan Squad said, can USC's offense go up 30 points against a stout Iowa defense? And Turtle said, no question, but it seems like the formula to this game is stop the run. Mayava continues to use his feet and score. This defense is good, so we need to have 30-plus points.
If we score 30-plus points, we win this game. There's no doubt in my mind. I really believe that. Now, can we get to 30 is the million-dollar question. It's going to be extremely tough. Can we score, consistently enough or have enough opportunities to even put up 30 points going up against this Iowa offense that likes to extend drives? Now, with that being said, that's their formula, is run the ball, take some time off the clock. It doesn't mean that they do that every single game. They have a good amount of 3 and outs. If you put them in third and long situations and you stop the run on first and second down, they're going to get off the field quick, and you can control the pace of the game. You can control the clock on the offensive side of the ball, but our defense has to stop them first, and that starts with the run game. If we do that, we get extra possessions. It's still tough. I want to say yes. The bias in me wants to say, yeah, we're going to put up 30 plus. We're going to go out and it's going to be bomb after bomb down the field, and Jaden Maeva is going to be hitting everybody, and we're going to be running the ball at will. Is that reality? I don't know. We'll see. But again, I trust the head man over there who's calling plays to come up with a great game plan. But it's also tough going up against the Phil Parker defense, and Iowa's been really good this year. So yeah, if we put up 30, I feel great that we win this game. I think if we put up 25 even, maybe 24, 21 range, I still feel really comfortable. That just comes down to how our defense is playing. But it's going to be an interesting game. This is one of the games where it's tough for me to predict what's going to happen because there's so many different variables. But at the end of the day, just go out there, control what we can control, execute at a high level, and the rest should take care of itself.
And now you add in rain in California, and there's thunderbolts, and
I know we haven't spoke about it, but that does not play into our favor in this game. Iowa's probably looking at the weather report right now going,
they already had practice.
Can we bring the rain with us? Yeah, can we bring the rain with us to LA, which they are.
The
so
Big Ten weather.
We'll see, though. That's going to be huge, though. Ball security, decision-making, all of that on offense. Can't have turnovers. You got to be smart with your football.
And I can't believe I'm saying it. And cross your fingers, knock on wood, no lightning delay, because that has now been in the schedule.
Well, you know what? We're the home team, though, so I'm fine.
I have USC women's basketball at Crypto.
You're talking about for Keely personally.
I mean both, but yes, sure.
Well, but you saw the team that travels. You get the lightning delay. It's tough because you're not at home. You're in that small locker room. The home team.
But then USC still won against Purdue.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's hit or miss though, because we struggled against Notre Dame. We played well against Purdue, but I just think when it comes to delays like that, not a huge advantage, but the advantage is slightly to the home team.
Sure.
Because you're in your own locker room. You're at your own facility. The away team's in a small, little, tiny locker room trying to figure out how to do their prep and get ready for a game. So I do think that works in our favor just a little bit.
That's a good point. Okay, our final question for this specific episode comes from the username Hefe of 4-ish, which I love hearing a new name.
There we
go. It's fun.
Shout out.
He said, what type of defense should Lynn start the game with?
Yeah, I think we go 4 defensive linemen, 3 linebackers, put Kamari and Bishop both at safety. Let's come out and load the box, play a 6 or 7 man box, maybe even an 8 man box, have Kamari rotate down, play tight to the line of scrimmage. It depends on what Iowa comes out in as well. If they get an 11 personnel with 1 tight end, 1 running back, 3 wide receivers, we can't put an 8-man box on the field, but I do expect us to maybe bring down Kamari to play over the top of that nickel defender and still have a 7-man box with 3 linebackers. But I think it's going to be similar to what we saw against Michigan, where we came out with Jaden Walker, with Desmond Stevens, with Eric Gentry, play more of a power-type defense, a more physical-type defense, only 2 safeties on the field, take a nickel defender out, and then force them to try to throw the football and see if they can beat a 7 or 8 man box and try to run it. So a little bit of a chess match there. It's going to go back and forth, but I do expect Lynn to start at least in this game with a 3 linebacker look and be more physical than having our nickel defense out there.
Alrighty, Cody. I was already very excited for this matchup.
Let's go.
But after sitting here, I am ready for it to be Saturday.
I'll wrap it up real quick. I'm so excited. This is what you want. When you sign up for the Big Ten, you want to play a great opponent in Iowa, but have it have major implications for your football team. You're in November. There's 3 games left to go. But we're 3 games away essentially from the college football playoff. That's what we got Coach Riley here for. That's why we've gotten the players that we've recruited. That's why we've gone to the Chad Bowden and everybody that's involved with this organization. That's why you go get a Coach Henney and coaches that know how to do it at the highest level and have won championships and know what winning football looks like. That's why you go get those guys for these type of games and this type of finish. I'm so excited. I got the chills. If you're going to the game, bring your umbrellas, bring your raincoats, but also bring that attitude. But let's have that fight on spirit out there, and let's go get ourselves a dub and put ourselves in a great position going into these last 2.
Alrighty, you heard the man. That's going to wrap it up for today's preview episode. We'll be back on Sunday for a recap episode, but that's going to wrap it up. That's Cody. I'm Keely. We'll see y'all next time.